Hello, my name is Erica Asimwe.
And I'm Richard Taylor.
And welcome to the Crossing the Raging River podcast. Last time we discussed with you a little bit about hippos, snakes, and crocodiles, and we told you that these snakes and crocodiles represent the different challenges that a leader might face as they are trying to cross this raging river. And today we are going to dive a little deeper into the cost of scarcity. Richard, do you want to say a few things about that before we go into it?
Yeah, we've already been talking in this podcast a little bit about this idea of a scarcity mentality. You know, when you bring it into leadership, we're going to talk a little bit in this podcast about what's the actual cost of that kind of scarcity leadership, a leadership that divides, a leadership that gives some power away, then they're going to lose power, those ideas. And we talked in the hippos, crocodiles, and snakes episode about how most of those big challenges that are faced, they really come from a scarcity mentality or scarcity leadership.
So, to start, I'm going to test your knowledge. You tested me on rivers. Now
I know,
I'm going
I
to
deserve
test
it.
your knowledge on African proverbs to see if you actually can understand what they mean. Are you ready? Yes, I have 3 proverbs for you. I'll say one and then you interpret it and we'll go like that.
Erica, I was born with it.
Yeah. So the first one is, if you have a drum, you don't beat it hard. If you have a drum, you don't beat it hard. What does that mean?
If you have a drum, you don't beat it hard.
Yes.
I keep thinking about when my 3-year-old son was given a Rwandan name and how much he beat that drum. He was beating it far too hard.
Yeah.
But what is the meaning of the proverb? If you have something that is valuable to you, don't treat it in such a way that you will break it.
You're close, but it's more about if you have resources, make sure you use them wisely, hold them dearly, because you might lose. So it's mostly encouraging people to not use their resources because they might lose them.
Yeah, I like that. That's a great proverb. Okay, try another one.
Another one is, the mouth that eats, this one is from Congo. The mouth that eats, what was it? I wrote it wrong. Okay, let's go to the third one. The poor man and the rich man do not play together.
The poor man and the rich man do not play together.
Yes.
I think this is saying that in society, that people from different social backgrounds, they really don't mix. They don't spend time together. We only spend time with those who are like us.
Yes. Yes, you got it right. So you got those 2 proverbs right. Tell us a little bit about how people with this scarcity mindset behave. How do these behaviors come out in real life?
Well, the scarcity mentality is actually described quite well by the author Stephen Covey. He's a leadership thinker, and he, as you know, wrote the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which many have read. And he talks a lot in that book about the scarcity mentality. He says that leaders who have this mentality often treat life and leadership like it's a zero-sum game.
Yes.
A zero-sum game. And what that essentially means is, if you win, Erica, then I lose.
Yeah.
You know, it's a win-lose approach. You know, the leader must win, because if he does not or she does not, then they will lose. They don't seem to see things as if I can win and also somebody else can win. Leaders who are like that are people who, he talks about how it's like they think that the resources that they have are fixed. Remember we talked about the fixed mindset of Dr. Carol Dweck.
Yeah.
And it's like, he talks about it like a pie. You know, if you have a pie, that's all there is. And so if a leader doesn't get all of the pie, then they'll miss out. Or the people don't get the pie, they'll miss out. That's what he calls a scarcity mentality. But in this context, what would be a better analogy than a pie?
I think most of us eat, I think in Uganda they call it kaunga, and in Kenya it's ugali, a big maize.
Yeah, I like ugali because I grew up in Kenya.
Yeah. So that's what represents something that's big enough and usually meant to be shared. Yeah.
That's right. Okay, so maybe it's more like ugali, but the leader wants to hold it all to themselves.
Yes.
Other characteristics of a scarcity-minded leader is a leader who can never be happy for the success of others.
Yeah.
Have you ever met a leader like that?
Yes, they're all over. They're all over. They want to make sure that they're the only people shining, and if other people shine, then they will do what it takes to bring them down. It's like they're ready to pull you down so that they can go up the ladder on their own.
That's right. The moment that they see somebody from their community becoming successful, they become jealous and they want to pull them back.
I think that's the reason that people are afraid to empower others. Because they feel like if I teach this person what I know, I'll be replaced.
That's right. And I think that's a very human emotion, but it's also rooted in a scarcity mentality because actually if a leader can empower enough people, their power increases.
Yes.
Because power is actually a renewable resource.
Exactly.
When it comes to other scarcity mentalities, leaders who are like that, you often see them possessing. Like they talk about it, these are my people.
Yeah.
You know, as if they own the people who are working for them. I made you. You better be loyal to me.
I hear that a lot in the religious circles here in Africa, where pastors feel like it's because of them that you are who you are, and so one day if you feel the call of God to go and start your own thing, you become an enemy, and they say, I made you who you are. If it wasn't for me, you would not be where you are today. Yeah,
that's true. It even happens a lot within the churches.
Yeah. You can imagine the church is supposed to be the light, and now the church is the one that where all these mentalities are.
Oh, God help us.
Yeah.
God help us.
Yeah, so this affects everyone. It's not just those who are Christians and non-Christians all struggle with this scarcity mindset.
Well, and it's interesting when you mention it, because when we look at the pages of Scripture, we see so many examples. Part of the wonderful thing about the Bible is it gives us a clear mirror of the human condition. Mm-hmm. All of these types of mindsets are revealed, which shows our need for somebody, a savior. But even Jesus himself, do you remember what happened with the disciples? As after they became with him for a period of time and they realized the one they were serving was doing miracles, thousands of people were coming to listen to his teaching. What is it they tried to do?
You tell me.
They tried to get in his best books, right?
Yeah.
They even had, remember James and John?
We'll just make a place for ourselves and we can stay here forever.
That's right. And the mother, and then also James and John's mother came and implored Jesus to put them at the right hand when they went into the kingdom of heaven, right?
Exactly.
So often this is part of the human mentality, is this scarcity mentality that creeps in where we're competing and we're possessing, and we think that the resources we have are so much that we don't choose to empower the people who are in
Another
us.
story that comes to my mind is that of Nehemiah when he comes back to rebuild and people start fighting against him and causing division, yet he's trying to do something that is going to benefit others. So I think leaders with this scarcity mentality, they see someone is doing well, they are causing impact, but they want to bring them down by finding a way to just put them down, cause division, and say this is not a good leader. Start gossip about someone so that person should not succeed.
That's right. Erica, I hope it's okay. I want to ask you a question that may be a little bit of tough for us to talk about, but you know, over half my life I've lived and worked, especially in East and Central Africa, and in that time I've seen some of the most beautiful places. It's the most beautiful people, some of the most incredible resources, and even success stories of people creating great enterprises. At the same time, there's that backdrop where you get the sense that that people are, you know, that there's a lot of resources, and yet a lot of people are still materially poor.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think it goes way back. I think Africa never used to be that way. I think we used to be people who used what we have, or people who shared the little we had. I think that was the culture we had. The older people would teach the young people. It was part of the mindset of sharing in the community. But I think when colonialism came, they tried to make us believe that what we have is not good enough.
Yes.
And so we started looking down on our resources. If you've not been to school, you will not feel confident to come and speak in a place because you feel like what you have is not worth it. What is coming from out there is better. So that now brought a spirit of dependency in us, feeling like unless they do things for us, we can't do it for ourselves.
I hate to think that even some of my own ancestors, I don't know who they were, but that they could have been a part of that, coming from Europe, other places.
Yes.
And even you think about the ultimate scarcity mentality, things like racism, things like seeing certain people as inferior, which is so different than what God says.
Yeah, and that has caused a lot more than just what we see in Rwanda. That caused loss of lives because people were divided instead of put together. So there's so many effects that brought, but ultimately it left us feeling like we are not capable. But I don't want to blame the West entirely, because we still have the responsibility as leaders to change that narrative, to go back to what we used to be before, because there are so many great things there. We are not lacking resources, we are not lacking knowledge. There's so many things that we can, and until we are able to provide solutions for ourselves, we will always be waiting for others to do it.
That is a powerful vision. So if you don't mind me asking, as a really gifted woman leader in this context, what are some things that you really would be dreaming about, ways that you think that we can overcome this scarcity?
Well, in particular, this scarcity of dependence, I think we need to start, first of all, by valuing our local resources in Africa, and not just valuing them, but using them. Because it's one thing to say we have. I hear so many people say we are so rich in Africa, but nothing changes.
Right.
When can we start using those things so that we can create value for what comes from Africa? I envision an Africa where one day we can sit on tables with people coming from different continents and defend a solution that works for us because we believe in it, and we have proven that it can work, but we don't have proof that it works because we've never tried. So I want to see Africans try to do things for ourselves so that we can also contribute to the world.
I love that. One of the things that really bothers me, and I wonder if you can speak to this, is that, I've always believed that a country's greatest wealth is its people.
Yeah.
Right? And when a people are united,
yes,
there's very little that can stop them.
Yes.
But it seems like this divisionism and tribalism just really seems to plague the continent.
And unfortunately, we don't learn from it, because we have a lot of examples in the past about how this has caused more harm than good. But yet we keep doing it. Leaders choose leaders from their tribes, and it continues. But until we are able to come together and say, okay, we are one nation, we are one Africa, what do we have and how can we do that? It will be very difficult for us to even get to an agreement, because someone would oppose your idea just because they're from another tribe and they don't want to support you.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big one to overcome. And when you think about another thing that I think I hear from many African leaders comes up a lot is the whole issues around corruption, where you have all of these resources, incredible natural resources, other resources, but so often the benefit of that doesn't flow to the very people that come from those communities. And corruption is one of the things that has been identified as a big challenge. How do you see that?
Yeah, I think it's rooted in the mindset that we were talking about, where we feel like there's not enough for everyone. I think you talked about that. I think when we come, we make sure that we eat enough.
That reminds me of a book.
Eat as much as you can. I have a funny way in which I describe any person who gains weight. Like you start out small, and then when you enter the government, you have a big belly. And that's a sign that I say, corruption is really happening, because you're eating enough to get to your body changes, everything changes. But that's always self-centered.
Sometimes it can even become bizarre. I don't know if you remember the name John Githongo. In Kenya, under the Mwai Kibaki government, he was appointed to root out corruption. He was like a corruption czar, you could say. But he did his job too well. He did his job so well that it even became uncomfortable for the leaders that had put him into place. And interestingly enough, you talked about that type of corruption. The book that he wrote about that experience was called It's Our Turn to Eat.
So that's how leaders come into. And that mindset is also limiting, because until someone breaks that cycle, many people are losing. It's never going to change. It's a cycle that keeps going.
But there are some encouraging things. I mean, as a person who spent more than 20 years here in Rwanda, being involved in different areas, I've seen how a clamp down on corruption can really help make sure that even limited resources, this is a small country.
Yeah.
This is a country that's one of the smallest in Africa and yet the most densely populated.
Yeah.
Limited resources and yet able to cut down on corruption so that those resources can really actually flow and they can help people to move forward.
It's possible. And again, just like our podcast, it takes an intentional leader, someone who's very intentional to say, I want to fight this. I want to do things differently. And if he's able to do that and rally people around him who also believe in it, then these changes can start happening in countries. I love that when I'm stopped here in Rwanda by a policeman, I'm safe. I feel safe because he's not going to ask me for something special. Which is, something special. In other places, you have to move with change. Small changes. I know for countries where it's based on the country where you have a particular note and this note is for the policeman.
Yes.
You always have to have it because they stop you whether you have committed a crime or not. Because you need to give it to them. So just being in a place where you feel free that it's okay, this person is doing their job, and if I'm wrong, I have to pay the costs, and if not, I will be let go of. But there's in other countries, whether you're wrong or not, you still pay.
Yeah, well, we have to overcome that. One final topic on this that I know you're very passionate about, because you talked about it in our last podcast, is this indignity of dependency.
Yeah.
Dependency. And, tell me a little bit about what's happened, because the way you seem to describe pre-colonial times is people who came together, people who worked together. Maybe even they didn't see themselves as poor.
Yeah.
But a lot seems to have changed.
Yes.
What is it that you think has kind of caused this dependency?
I think we like I shared earlier, we adopted this mindset that we don't have anything to offer, and it became a way of life. So even how we see situations, even when we lead, we look at the glass as half empty. We don't look at what is already there so that we can build on it. And when we go in my case, I work with communities. When I go to the community with that mindset of looking at them as people who don't have, it means that I must find resources, and those resources must come from outside. It's
like when the NGO, and they're everywhere here, and they come to the community in that white Land Cruiser with the decal on the side,
exactly,
and the money signs, right? And then what do they usually do?
They come, and people in the communities will come after them, actually knowing that they are going to give them money. They're not thinking that they are going to be contributing. The first thing they will think is, these people have brought the money to us. So that mindset is perpetuated in communities. But as someone who is a Westerner, and probably we have to roast you because you are the person that is sitting here and can maybe provide answers to the ancestors.
On behalf of all Westerners.
Yeah. Why do organizations do this? Why do they lead like this?
I think most times people really out of a genuine heart to help.
Yeah.
But we've learned that helping can hurt.
Yeah.
There's even a book about that.
Yeah.
And the problem is when you remove the dignity and the agency of the very people that you're trying to help. And I think what happens is over time organizations just get used to perpetuating themselves. It's like a poverty industry comes.
Yeah.
And if they were to really have people stand on their own feet, then they would no longer be needed. And so usually when organizations come, what they do is a needs analysis. They're always looking at deprivations. What's the problems around here? And then what it does is it perpetuates this cycle of needs, this cycle of dependency. That's really been a very, very unfortunate thing on the continent. Wow.
Yeah.
This is something I'd like to talk about a lot more in future episodes.
Yeah.
So we've really dug into this scourge of the scarcity mentality. We talk about it as like the cost of scarcity leadership. I think we should maybe do an economic study sometime to show how many billions have been lost due to this type of scarcity leadership, this toxic leadership and mentality. But again, we keep coming back to, can we have any hope? Is there another way of being able to lead?
Yes, there is. And I think the point of our podcast is not just to talk about all the things that are going wrong in Africa or these crocodiles.
Yeah, and we're mostly talking about Africa because this is the setting that we're in.
Yeah.
It happens all over the world, really.
It does, yeah. And not just talking about the crocodiles, we also have to think about what are the potential stepping stones, what is the way forward, how can we overcome this. And I think in the next episode we'll be talking about what it means to be an abundant leader, the idea of abundant leadership, and how we can use it as an approach to overcoming these challenges.
I've been feeling heavy during this podcast, so that really sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the impact of abundant leadership.
Yes, and as usual, thank you for listening to us today. We hope you really enjoyed this episode. If you want to hear more, you can go to our website at kurumbuka.org/podcast for you to access more resources. Thank you.
Thank you so much.